just want to say welcome, everybody. I'm Helen Patterson. I'm the founder of Life Works Well. And I started this Mentor Circle series at the beginning of the pandemic back in April 2020. I took a break here and there, but it's been almost 2 years. Wow. So I'm very thankful that you're here today. I have been loving sharing information and having some great guests on, and really opening up the space for great dialogue. And so this month, we've been celebrating Women's History Month all month. And as you know, if you've been on some of these before, or I am a big champion of human rights and creating equitable workplaces, part of the work we do here. So I'm really excited about our guests and our talk today. And so what we're going to cover a little bit of Women's History Month, talk about women in the workplace, a little bit about intersectionality and what that means, in particular in the equity, diversity, and inclusion world. And we're going to talk mentorship because, you know, that's a passion here and it's a passion of our guest today. And we're going to, I'll introduce Evangeline a little later, but we're going to have a Q&A. So I think it's going to be a great session today. I'm so glad you could join. Before we get going, and feel free in the chat to let me know where you're calling in from. I just like to start with a land acknowledgement. And I'm honored to be on the lands of the nations, the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and many other diverse First Nations. I'm in Toronto, and Treaty 13 is covers Toronto. And it's also known, you know, as Turtle Island and the dish with one spoon. And so mentor circles to me are really important as well, because I think it honors Indigenous ways and circle ways. So welcome, and let me know where you're from as well. So I always loved, I think everybody can see the screen. Just give me a wave if you can't, but I hope you can. For you, those who have been here before, I love quotes and I love, you know, role models. And before today, Evangeline and I had a little bit of chat about people and culture and human first, and really the work that I do and the work that human resources professionals and people professionals is really about trying to help organizations create the culture, inclusivity, respect, all those things. So I love this quote, and I love that. I really believe women, and you know, we get a few men here once in a while, but women are really making a huge difference. And when we think about taking care of our Mother Earth and the universe and all the things that are happening in the world, I'm seeing so many more women leaders and entrepreneurs paving the way. So a little bit about women's history. You know, it started a long time ago, and there is some things we have to acknowledge also, that there, with feminism and women's movements, often it was white females as well. And so we do have to also repair some of that and make sure it's inclusive. If you think about even the women's right movement, the suffragette movements, often we still had Black people, our other women and that's what intersectionality is about as well. They were often excluded, and they were excluded from the vote at first. So that is also some of the history that we have to unravel, unlearn, and relearn and restart new ways. So I will go through some of these slides really quickly. Anyone participating or who signed up can look at these later as well. But it is important to look at these statistics. We have some work to do still in the area of equity and equality for women, and as well as in our other areas such as visible minorities and other underrepresented groups. But it's always eye-opening when you start to look at this again, and that we are still earning less on the dollar than male counterparts. So I think it's always important to look at this. So you can take a look at that later. I love to share this information. Senior levels, there's still a way to go. And this is what we've been looking at all month. We've been posting history. We've been posting current day history makers like Evangeline and others. And, we have to champion the way. So Evangeline, I can't even remember how we met, but we met when she was starting this wonderful organization called Black Mentorship, Inc. And because we had a passion for mentorship, so we connected on LinkedIn and we've been chatting and we've been in touch ever since. So not only has she started this wonderful organization, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about that later, she's involved in leadership at Sheridan, some initiatives there in the community. I have attended some of her Black History Month events, and she's very much engaged with the community that she's part of, and really building that new infrastructure of relationships. So we're really lucky to have her. I'll let her tell her story a little bit more, but I also wanted to just say, she's won these awards and she really is truly inspirational. And so I think, this is the new world. How are we supporting women-led businesses, people making a difference, people helping to change in a much bigger way? I'm just going to slide through so I can bring you out. There's a little bit on intersectionality here. You can read later. And then when we want to create equitable workplaces, there's so many things we can do to make it better. Again, our theme is primarily women this month, but for everybody, right? So we're going to talk about that. There's some other things. You can look at this later if this is the work you do. Just a few suggestions on how to create equitable workplaces and also how you can measure your progress. There are materials up on lifeworkswell.ca. We have blogs, we have ideas for you on how to make that happen in your workplace, and some additional resources. So, and then you can find Evangeline, and I'll let her give the details at the end. And myself, information, you can look us up later. I'm just going to stop the share so I can bring her out. So we're going to basically have a Q&A, and feel free to put things in the chat as we go, and we'll get some questions answered, or if you feel comfortable coming out and asking, that's fine too. And then at the end as well, if you want to ask some questions. So welcome, and thank you so much for being here. It's been great to get to know you, Evangeline. And so I thought if you could just share a little bit about your journey. I know a little bit about it, but for those here and for people watching later, how did you get to where you are today, and your reason behind founding Black Mentorship, Inc. And take your time, because I know there's a lot of history there.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Helen. Thank you for having me today. I think I was chatting with you before we came up live, and I said up until the last minute, I was thinking, how can I run away? How can I run away? How can I say to you, I don't think I'm able to do this? And it's because I was a bit fearful, knowing that you were going to ask me to tell you my journey, to share me with everyone. And it's a space that I'm still navigating. I'm still learning to open up, to be authentic, to share some of my pain. And if I have to talk about how Black Mentorship Inc. came to be, then that means I have to share a little bit of my pain as well. And that's still a scary place to go. I never knew that I will be running an organization. What is that? Even when I first started this idea, honestly, I did not conceptualize in my head that this now means that I'm running an organization. what it was and what it is still is me trying to figure out how can I help the next person who look like me, talk like me, a woman, not experience some of the hurts that I experienced. How can I support my community to be confident in their skin? By the way, I'm still getting used to wearing my hair this way. I pulled my wig a couple of times and then I dropped it and I said, you look pretty the way you are, just go on. So
you do. You look beautiful.
Thank you. So BMI, Black Mentorship Inc. Mission, reason why I started it is basically me trying to figure out, and I'm still figuring it out, how I can support the next woman, the next person of color, the next person that may be struggling in the work environment. How can I equip them to be who they are, to step into their authenticity, to speak up, because I didn't speak up. I allowed so many of the things that happened to me to impact me in a personal way, and it shouldn't. We should be able to separate issues with who we are. So basically saying the BMI, I started BMI just to create an environment of inclusivity, environment where we can be authentic, environment where we can provide a little bit of help and support, because all of these things are what I wished that somebody gave me, somebody supported me, somebody was there for me, somebody allowed me to be me, somebody allowed me to be authentic and say, hey, I'm struggling. This is what I need to get to the next stage of my career. And I didn't have it. And I'm hoping through the work that we're doing that the next person will have it and be able to step into who they are without fear of being judged.
That is incredible. And that's often the way that our lived experiences kind of drive, I don't want that to happen to someone else. I don't want them to go through what I went through and how much tougher it was. And I acknowledge for you, it is tougher. And sometimes you may be in it and not realize, but then you sort of see the world as you get older. I don't know what it is. We're young, we're naive, we're innocent children. And then as we get out into the world and we broaden our perspectives, it's eye-opening. So I know this isn't easy. And so I really appreciate you being open and authentic. And because I think the whole intent of this dialogue is to open up and to also encourage organizations to open up these kinds of discussions and the realities, right? And be transparent and be open to listen, right? So I know we talked a little bit about, discrimination, and it's a reality, and it still is, unfortunately, despite all of the events that happen, whether it's at work, at school, in our communities, it's still there. And there's some movement after tragedy, with George Floyd kind of bubbling up, but it's been going on forever, right? For 400 years or more. So if you don't mind sharing your experiences and your story about events that happened it's up to you about naming companies, but events that happened to you, because again, this is how we can learn, and we can help organizations and hopefully those HR professionals that also need to speak up, right? And stand up for what's right. So if you don't mind, would you mind sharing some of that experience that kind of informed, what happened today, who you are, and how you started this as well?
It is not one experience that informed what I'm doing today, the work that we are doing today. It is series of experiences, lots of rejections, being fired so many times, and people want to use the word laid off, the fancy words. It doesn't matter which word you used, the heart, the feeling that you walk away is the same thing. One experience that there was one particular, I'm going to give you maybe two, but there was one organization that I had the most heart. And I think I've shared a couple of my experiences openly where they too, of my starting in this particular organization, just they too, I was told by my then boss that I wasn't qualified for the position I was hired for. Day two. So I'm popped up, I'm excited, I'm thinking, oh my God, this is what I'm gonna do, and what we're gonna do, how we're going to improve the bottom line. And I'm sitting across this individual and they're saying to me, you are not really qualified for this position. And I remember asking, which was rare for me, honestly, because most times in the past, I would have just sat there and kept quiet. But then I was able to mouth, then why did you hire me? And then this individual started telling me how I had a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but not enough for what they were looking for. And so many people that had applied for that position had just one aspect. And so they figured, since I had a little bit of this, that, they will hire me. And here I am. The interview process was really intense. It was very technical. And so I was so excited when I was called and I was told that I made it. I thought, or I felt, whoa, I know my stuff, right? So being told that, no, we just managed you, because that's what I heard in that moment, took a big stab at my already insecurity, right? And then it didn't stop there. There was also another incident, again, same organization, where I'm sitting in front and we're having a town hall meeting. I'm the only visible person of color in the room. I'm from Nigeria, and I don't believe there was any other person in that organization that was from Nigeria. And my country was being used as a place that's an example. We were talking about privacy, and this individual said, people from Nigeria are known to do this, that. And I'm sitting in front, and this is somebody that is actually a top management person. Once again, like I said, it was so rare for me. But by this time, I'm learning to speak up. So afterwards, I went to the HR person, and I'm saying this part because you said, how can we support HR? I went to the HR person and I shared my experience, but it was ignored, was not even acknowledged. Then there is also another experience, another organization, another individual, a fellow employee. This is our orientation. And then after the orientation, we're walking back to our seats. And this person, who is a very close friend of mine now, said, as I'm walking, they're going, no, she's not going. She must be going to marketing side, not to take away anything from the people that work in the marketing department. So we passed the door leading to marketing department. The person go, okay, it must be customer service. And then boom, we passed customer service. And then the person said, I don't think she's going to systems. Couldn't be, she's not going to systems. And then, who? She's IT person? You know? And this is how often, as women, Black women for that matter, we're not seen as smart. And so just seeing me in the orientation room, this individual already concluded who I am, how smart or not smart that I am, where I belong, without even giving me an opportunity. And
wow.
so...
Sorry, I had to just pause there and just acknowledge, because it's just, when you hear it, I'm just, first of all, sorry that you had to go through that. It's so unacceptable to me and my views, but I just want to acknowledge that is, that is something that's going on still, right? And this assumptions of capability. So I admire you stepping up when you did, even though that shouldn't be your role. It should have never happened, and I know there's more, so that's not good, because we're all going to be like really, really at the end. So sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to take that pause for a second to just,
Not at all, not at all. And I must add that this individual is a person of color as well. And the reason why it's important for me to point that out is because we assume that when it comes to discrimination, it is white versus Black, LGBTQ, and a person, quote unquote, straight. We forget that discrimination happens among all of us. Me sitting here, I can very well be discriminating against you, Helen, or against Carol, who is also Black like me. And this is why it's important that we create, when we talk about creating an inclusive environment, we not think about inclusive environment when it comes to race. Let me create an inclusive environment for Black folks. Let me create an inclusive environment for people from the disability community. We should have the lens of creating an inclusive environment for everyone. Everyone wants to be seen. Everyone wants to thrive. Everyone wants to, we all have one goal or the other that we are working towards. And so when we talk about work environment, when we talk about designing avenues for people to get to whatever potential they're striving for, we should make sure that we include everybody in that design.
I love that. And I didn't mean to, if you have other stories to share, obviously incorporate that, because I know you said you had a few, and it's just to open up. So I love what you said about inclusivity. There's a lot of work, people, there's been all this push. We talked a little bit about this, in the last week or so, that there's been this push for organizations. All of a sudden there's equity, diversity, inclusion champions, and they're, putting things out there, their commitments, looking at their policies. So, and belonging is another term we're hearing as well, right? So I think this is going to take years still. This is just the beginning, because this has been some of it. For example, employment equity. We talked a little bit about that in the federal regulated businesses, they've already had this legal requirement to ensure they have people from these 4 designated groups, yet it's not happening. They still aren't hiring people with disabilities. They still aren't hiring, Indigenous peoples, maybe because Indigenous people, they're also looking at self-governance and all kinds of things, but there's not this opening, and it's been in place for years. So I loved what, we chatted a little bit about, how can we take some of these experiences and how can we, incorporate better practices? Are there any things that come to mind based on your experiences? And I mean, we're going to have a few other questions and things like that too, but just off the top, as a starting point, what would you recommend to organizations that haven't got, like the large ones have resources, their head, but for even those smaller and medium size that are still wanting to look at this, do you have like, these are the top 5 things, or these are at least the 1 or 2 I do right away?
I think we talked about this yesterday, where I said for sure, until government starts putting in policies that hold organizations accountable for the work they're doing around inclusion, diversity, equity, it's all going to be talk. It's all going to be performative allyship or action, right? And this is why this morning I saw on LinkedIn, somebody posted around number of, police arrests, discrimination and things like that going up. I believe they said 37% instead of going down. And this is since 2020, where I think Black Lives Matter, everything that we've been saying is the loudest this period. And yet the number of police arresting or discriminating, against people of color rose instead of declining, right? So most organizations, if you remember in 2020, all of them came out and took a stance. We're against this, we're against that, and all of that. But when you go back and check, and I have this habit of clicking on organizations, their team, to see the team makeup, nothing has changed. So we're still doing that performative. And even if it has changed, even if they've tried to hire a Black person, and by the way, can I please say this? Black people, we're not only capable of leading DEI work. We're not, because all the promotions that I've seen, well, not all, 80% of it is putting Black people in the leadership space of DEI. We're smart. We can do more. We can lead. Yeah. Right?
Oh, wow.
I said to say that.
Oh, I'm glad you said that, because again, even in the work I've done personally, supremacy, I did it with a working group. And we dug through that. We've read so many books together, and really, this learning and unlearning and the systems, right? It's all systems. It's like, it's not for you to do the work, right? Like, it's like, this is our work. This is colonialism. This is like this work, right? And so, yes, people, I think that I was blessed to be part of that group. There were women that actually volunteered, and they were really amazing, because it was really us learning and unlearning and challenging our own beliefs, and really, doing the work individually, because I see it as you have to do that as well. And then teams, and then organizations, right? So, but they were very helpful in sharing and educating us a little bit, but they willingly did it, right? Like it's an interesting thing, because sometimes it's the passion that drives it, like you, Evangeline, starting this because you saw that this wasn't available. And so sometimes it's the passion. That's why people go into it, because they were treated poorly, and that's what makes them the decision. And I think it's really, everybody has to work together for it. And every group has to be engaged in whatever you're developing. So
Absolutely, Helen, every group, and it starts with you as an individual. But yet you're right, everybody has to be involved in creating that inclusive environment. You had asked, what should organizations do? And I'm sure we've all had leadership is virtual. People learn by watching you do the right thing, and then they follow you and they do it, right? And I think we should also approach, inclusiveness, equity in that light. Organizations need to move away from performative stance to taking real intentional action, making an authentic effort to ensure everyone feel seen and heard. And I use the word everyone, so not a particular group of people, right? And I'm doing that intentional because for me, it has always been about, I want to advance. I want Helen to advance. I'm not asking promote me, don't promote the other person. If I merit it, then give it to me. And I think that if organizations start putting it into action, efforts that show everybody, if you want to be advanced, this is the criteria. This is what you need to do to get to the next stage. So everybody's in the know. I'll give you an example. I was working in an organization. Somebody that I started a month before got promoted twice within 2 years. Why I was still where I was, not because I didn't want to move on. Most times when I apply for leadership positions, it's not even acknowledged. I don't even get an acknowledgement email. And because in this particular organization, it was not clear what the advancement or promotional criteria were, because I, as an employee, I wasn't in the know. So the only conclusion that I came to was this person was promoted because of their race. And the reason why I'm not promoted is because I'm Black. It may or may not be the right assumption. But if you as an organization want everybody to understand what needs to be done, then why don't you be transparent with your promotional approach? If you're talking about inclusion, how can you make me feel included? If I, as an employee, can say that Helen here has gotten 2 promotions because of her ability to lead, we should all be able to tell the story of why somebody in our team got some type of promotion. I should be able to say, I know this person, this is their work ethics. But when you go off randomly promoting people and other employees, other team workers are not able to make the case, you shouldn't be the one making the case. It should be the people around who is watching. It should be them saying, oh, she, he, they deserve it.
Wow. Yeah, that is such a great point. And when you were saying that, just before you said that about transparency, that's what came up for me, because that is, and I mean, this world, this is the way it's been. Sometimes people just, oh, why did that person get that promotion as opposed to this? And I have a very recent situation, a colleague of mine who was pretty upset and called me. She called me. She had been in her role for a good 10 to 12 years, won an award for the organization last year, just all these credentials. And everyone on her team thought she would get the promotion, and she didn't. And it was, whoa, like it just hit her because everybody thought, and this other person, you know, had less experience. And you can imagine that, that feeling, right, of being overlooked, but others also seeing it. And so she wants to leave the organization now. And, you know, this is someone it's a very reputable, large organization, great benefits, great comp. And now you know, you question, is it ageism in her case? Because there wasn't any race issue in this case, right? But so you're looking, and there's all of these, like you said, there's so many ways that you can be discriminated against. But it was heartbreaking to hear her in that she's given so much. And that's the thing, is organization, like, to me, you know, you talked about it, Evangeline, like when people are let go, fired, or like terminated is what they call it. It's like, I actually edit a book called Best Practice Terminations. It's like, I inherited it. I didn't come up with that title. I would have never said that, but I've always said last impressions matter too, right? First, everything. So I was thinking back to your situation of excitement for a new job. And on day 2, you're told, like, you know, I can't imagine that feeling, right? So throughout that whole working relationship, every opportunity. I wanted to open it up. If anyone else has any questions, feel free, or put it in the chat. But I just wanted to come back to something about including people, right? And in involving, you know, it's not leaders just making decisions, but including people when you're designing inclusive workplaces and things. Because we had an interesting chat about the whole world of recruitment is changing. And I mentioned to Evangeline, this one of my mentees was talking about, she applied for a role in HR. It was an HR coordinator starting out because she's still a student. And it was anonymous. Now they call it blind applications. Again, I don't like that term, the language. I like anonymous. But thinking that, oh, anonymous, then you don't know, there's no like already, you know, bias when you see a name. But Evangeline, you had a little bit of a different thought on that. And I thought that was interesting because, again, you can make assumptions about whether that's a good idea or not. Like, what do you think about that? I'm curious. You might as well share it with everybody here.
I don't like that idea. I'm struggling and I'm working so hard to show up and be my authentic self 100% of the time. And here you are trying to hide who I am. I don't want you to do that. I want you to know that I am Evangeline, a Black woman, Black intelligent woman, I like to add. And this in front of you, my resume, is my qualification. What happens to us doing the actual work of retraining our bias? Because what we are saying is, continue your bias. Let's remove the name so you don't know. Because if you know, then you're not going to get Evangeline to come and interview. Well, that's a temporary fix.
Yeah, I just love that because, again, it's different perspectives. And when you think about it, this is the challenge. We should not have to remove names. We are who we are, and embrace it. And you should embrace it because you're, you know, and it's just, I don't know if I mentioned, but there was this study done by some researchers in a university, and this happened. They had all of these applications going in on an applicant tracking system. And so this is what happens in these, the tracking system kind of has criteria, and then it'll kick people out, which I just find, computers shouldn't be making these decisions anyway. So I've never been a fan, but it's the reality when you're getting 1,000 applications or something. Anyway, it was really interesting that the predominantly Anglo Caucasian type names were being chosen. So they did this study, and they took names and they changed them. So exact same resume, and changed it because it might have been like maybe a Nigerian name or in any way, but they found that once they changed it to a white name, they were being chosen. And this was just like this big study, and it was like, what the heck? This is ridiculous. Anyway, so I get on my soapbox right here.
I experienced that in the beginning. I changed my name from Evangeline Chima to Evangeline Collins. And there was a drastic change. And this was in the beginning. I'm looking for work. When new in Canada, I'm applying job. Nobody's calling me. And then I changed my name, and it started happening. Then I think it was just wasn't even few months. I'm like, no, I don't feel comfortable with this. I changed it back. And of course, I started struggling again. And this is also why I have that problem with blocking who I am, because guess what? That's just the first phase. The second phase, you're going to know who I am, right? And then you should be allowed to now say no to me, because all of a sudden you suddenly realize that I'm Black, I'm woman. No, I think we should do better. We should actually focus more on making authentic efforts to make people feel seen, to make people understand that our process, and going back to that process that I talked about, this is our hiring process. This is the criteria. This is the job requirement. And we should center, if we say this is what it is, well, let's guide our acceptance or calling people for interview based on what we put out as the job description, because that's why I applied. I looked at the job description that you put out. I look at the qualification that you put out, and I applied based on that. So we should train our staffs, our HR team, to base their efforts selection on the criteria that we put out. It is not easy. I get that. For us to retrain our unconscious biases, right? Yeah. But the first step is accepting that we all have it.
Oh yeah. And I mean, that's some of the work that's being done, but it's not enough to just do a little course. Everybody took the unconscious bias training and checked a list, and then and they're moving on. Like, you need to challenge every day, right? And be open and have that. I love it. Like, I actually, I'm sort of finishing off winding down my career, and I think, wow, this is something I've been trying to push for years and organize. And it's like, it feels like it's opening up a lot more, but they're still difficult. People don't like to have uncomfortable conversations, right? They don't like to dig deep. I did this, and I'm curious, I'll ask you this question. I did these we did them coffee chats, we called them, at one of my clients. And so every month we would pick a different theme, in addition to the other training they did with the Canadian Center for Diversity and Inclusion. And they also hired some consultants. So they really were taking action, which was nice. And we would just pick a different topic and watch a film together and or read something and have conversation. But sometimes it was really hard. But often, like, there was one or two leaders that would show up. And it's like, well, where's the president and CEO? And, the CFO never showed up, but the COO and a couple, it was just like, this is the thing. This is for everybody. It's not just for, a group of us to get together and have these meaningful conversations, right? And difficult ones. So do you have any thoughts on like creative, like I know you've been doing great events and even bringing in other things like music or sharing things, and mentorship. We can't forget to talk about mentorship, because I believe, hey, if you create a mentor culture and have people that have walked before you that you can, aspire to or have as a role model, that's great. So I know that's a lot. I always have really long questions. It's more rambling and then a question, but
oh no, you know what? There is so many things, like you said in what you just asked me. You talked about action and action. All of those organizations taking action definitely is the key. It's not enough to just do the training, the checklist. And that's why I talked about leadership is virtual, inclusiveness is also virtual. I believe is Mayor Maya Angelous that said, people will forget what you said. People will never forget how you made them feel, right? And that is really so important when we talk about belonging, inclusive environment, mentorship, right? For me, it's always good to have a mentor, and I'm the last of large family, and so I have so many mentors. But then I realized that having a mentor in the workplace is a total different thing altogether, right? And so here I am looking to advance to the next stage of my career. After 17 years of doing business analysis, I felt I was over ready to lead a team. And it didn't matter how many times that I applied. Like I said, sometimes I don't even get an acknowledgement, and oftentimes they will tell me I'm not ready yet, but then they will go out and get somebody in that when I start speaking to the person or when I start watching, I see that I was more ready than this individual. That's reality, right? So we are all watching. Your staffs are watching. When we are watching, when you're seeing your action as an executive, the action speaks more than your words. So yes, it's good for the CEO, the CFO, the VP, whoever they are, to be part of the conversation. But then we also want to watch them and see how they implement, walk the talk, basically. Right? For mentorship, for me, I believe strongly that every person, every human being could do with a little bit of nudge.
Yeah, that's amazing.
With a little bit of help.
Yeah.
Right? And so when I started applying for these positions and I wasn't getting anything, I really desperately looked for somebody to support me. Mm-hmm. And now this is where having somebody that looked like you is important. Unfortunately, everywhere that I walked, everywhere that I looked, there was really nobody that looked like me in the senior position. So and it didn't matter which organization. So it was so hard. And then I had to start telling myself to forget about it, to stop dreaming that it wasn't going to happen. And I'm really an ambitious person. So it wasn't a good feeling for me, for my psyche, for my whole being. In 2017, I had just, I was sick, and it was the same organization that I talked to you about. I was going through so many things in that organization. Eventually, I was fired by that organization because I was sick, and they were thinking that perhaps I was going to go into a long-time illness. And I had a spinal procedure. Actually, I was let go the day that I walked my first day at work I still had bandage at my back at that time. And so I finally, my spirit was broken. And I crashed. I'm still healing. I have to throw that in. I said to myself, if you're going to talk about this, you're not going to cry. I'm still healing. And during that process, I really desperately needed a mentor who could support me. And again, I didn't see anybody in the workspace that could support me. I think I'm rambling right now, but
no. And that, it's a perfect, because we did get a question. It's like, this is what we talked about earlier, our experiences that kind of drive our journey in a way. And, again, like those experiences will make you think about what's next. Like that employer, did they support you? And so the question was about, like, I know this kind of what drove you eventually to start Black Mentorship Inc. And like, I think the question, someone wanted to learn a little bit more about your company and everything. So I'm wondering, that would have been then a few years before you started, right? So some of these experiences, is that what led you to start Black Mentorship Inc.? And there's that
like I said, for me, Black Mentorship Inc., was started because I felt I needed to do something so that another person doesn't experience what I experienced. And again, I wanted to climb. I wanted to get to this manager position, and I didn't see anybody that looks like me. So perhaps if we provide people the tools and education that they need, maybe they will stand a better chance than I did. Let me go back a little bit and say that when George Floyd was murdered, that experience gave me the power to reach out to the organization that I experienced the most hurt. And I had a good conversation with the CEO and the HR person who I had reached out to at one point. And I remember this person saying to me, "Oh, that was my first year, and I didn't know how to handle your complaint." Which goes back to me, the idea of we need to train HR representatives, because their role is so important in fostering inclusivity, belonging, safe environment for all people. I'm trying to remember, did I get an apology? Not necessarily, because I believe the organization and so many organizations, they are more worried about saving their face than really showing their human side. And I know when we talked about this yesterday, you said organization is not human. Yes, they're not human, but the people that make up the organization, they are human. And so, yes, perhaps organizations need to start looking at themselves as being human in order for them to show the empathy that is required to support their staffs. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It's made up of many people and humans, and there a lot of people I know trying to bring humanity back in. And it really is. It starts with leadership. I mean, there's so much, we could probably go on for hours about the skills needed for our leaders and empathy and all of that. We only have a few minutes left. I do have a 1 o'clock, but I just wanted to, for those watching later or anybody, for Black Mentorship Inc., where can people find you? Do you need mentors? What's the focus coming up for you? I want to make sure we do have that time, and I want to say thanks again. But yeah, if there's more, anybody have a final question, but I would love to make sure that people know where to find you and what you could, what support you could use for your organization as well.
Oh, thank you so much for that. So our website, blackmentorshipinc.ca. We have presence, and I believe, in a lot of the social media channels. So LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. You can email info@blackmentorshipinc.ca. to learn more. But really, I ask that you go to our website if you want to know more about the work that we're doing. We are evolving. We are just like I am. We are work in progress. Like I said to you, when I first created this framework, I call it framework because I wasn't really seeing it as an organization. I was seeing it more of a channel to support individuals. And right now, what we're really looking for, we have a couple of graduates of our program. And so what we're really looking for is organization, if we just wish, hey, who's listening to me, an organization to give us space for internship opportunities for our graduates. A whole lot of us, we dream of big roles, management positions, and all of that. But maybe perhaps that's really not what we want to do. So if we are able to do an internship work, maybe job shadowing work, it will expose us to exactly our career dream. And then it will allow us to make the informed decision if this is what we want to do or not, right? And so that is, for me, the biggest thing that can happen to us, to Black mentorshiping, where we are able to provide opportunity for internship for our graduates. And another thing is, I really believe that it's important that people see their career dream in organizations in the management space, right? I'm not able to say I'm going to be a VP easily, because how many Black VPs do you know? Right. And so organizations need to start making that conscious effort so that our younger generations can really believe that they can be this person or that person. When you don't have hope, life feels like it's nothing. So we need to show hope by demonstration.
That's amazing. I just love what you're doing. And I know it's hard work, making a difference. But I just thank you for that. And you can also donate, or if you know companies that could sponsor Black Mentorship Inc. would be incredible. Or donate if anybody's looking for volunteer time as well to help you with your business. So I'm just so thankful that
chip in a second. Thank you so much. You've been amazing. Not just you support us in every way possible. You donate to us. You comment on our programs, post everything. And so I really would like to take this opportunity to thank you, for the support. Sometimes I go, my goodness, honey, I'll call my husband. I said, I don't know what this woman's saying me. My goodness, how can I ever thank her?
I know a beautiful shining light when I see it, but it's that mutual passion for mentorship. And, growing up, I didn't have that a lot too. And so, you think back and you think, yeah, if I struggled a bit there, if I could have had someone just to talk to and work it through. And that's what's inspirational. And I'm going to have to get that quote from you, but this will be a great way to end that. We want to be able to see our dream career or role in others before us. Right. And so, absolutely. And hopefully they can champion it. So thank you for everyone who showed up today. And, I just appreciate all of you that are here. Evangeline, for your time and for your commitment. And I know we'll be keeping in touch. So I do have to sign off, but I just wanted to say thanks again, and everyone have a wonderful week. It's still chilly here and I'm kind of tired of it, but it's like, come on, spring and summer. And we'll see you all again soon. So absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Create your own sunshine. Don't worry about the weather outside.
That's another good quote. Create your own sunshine. I'm going to keep that one. Have a great day, all. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.